Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, teachers and all learners. Welcome back. And this second episode from the English A Literature and Language Diploma Programme series focuses on paper two, the second and final externally assessed paper for young learners across their diploma programme journey. Now, while there are four assessments, paper one, the next day, paper two, these two are externally completed and marked. Teachers don't get to see what their students write unless the paper is recalled for whatever reason. The third and fourth episode of this series will focus on the individual oral and the high level essay. So, paper two. What is it and how do we write it well? It is probably the most challenging yet rewarding part of the English A course. It's where you bring together your understanding of two different texts. You showcase your ability to think critically and your skill in crafting a clear and comparative argument, all within 1 hour and 45 minutes. So, what is paper two? At its core, it is a comparative essay. You'll be given four questions to choose from. You pick one. And you must answer it by comparing and contrasting two literary works that you have studied. You're expected to engage with global issues, examine literary features, and explore the authorial choices that make these two texts unique. Take, for example, one of these questions sourced from a paper two, years gone by. Let's have a look at how broad they can be. We have Specimen 2011. Literature is often said to be timeless. To what extent is this true of two literary works? How about we go for November 2013, third from the bottom. A work can be critically acclaimed in one culture and be banned in another. Discuss how two works might lend themselves to various receptions. Now, the problem with preparing two texts for this exam is that you are extremely dependent on the IB. If you are standard level, you will have 3 texts ready to go, and if you're higher level, you will have 4 texts ready to go. Prepare as best you can and disempower the IB to the best of your ability. How do you do that? Learn your 3 or 4 texts inside out so that it doesn't matter what questions you're provided with, you're comfortable regardless. So, what is the challenge? What makes paper 2 tricky? First, choosing the right question. The question must fit your texts naturally. Never try to shoehorn your works into a prompt that doesn't suit them. Then there's the challenge of balancing your comparison, avoiding shallow thematic generalizations, comparisons of merely the plots, and remembering to analyze literary features under time pressure. Albeit an hour and 45 minutes, 105 minutes is more than enough time. You should be encouraged by your teachers to take around 10 minutes to plan this essay and still have time left over at the end of the exam to review your work. A 5-paragraph essay is something that you have had beaten into you since the tail end of middle school. So, the rubric. Before your eyes is the rubric for paper 2. Marked out of 30, the points are allocated as 10 for criteria A and B each, and 5 points for criteria C and D each, so totaling 30. Now, as a seemingly random word I've circled in criterion A, one of the most influential elements of your paper 2 essay rests in your use of and reference to implications. See implication as synonymous with effect. You must directly reference the implication of a certain piece of evidence on the story, text, and the audience. Examiners are advised to look for this specific word, implication. So make sure you include it, because if you don't, you cannot score. Look at the rubric. You cannot score above a 4. Second, we move into criterion B, analysis and evaluation. What is an analysis? What is an insightful analysis? Oftentimes, learners will ask me what the difference is, and this can lead to rather contentious exchanges at times, which makes sense. It's normal given the importance of success in this particular exam. However, what exactly differentiates the two? In short, to score a 6 out of 10, an analysis discusses what and why something happens, while an insightful analysis examines what, why, so what, and why this matters beyond the text. Ergo, to apply your essay to the wider context will earn you more marks. This could be through global issues or the timelessness of the text and reference to the premiere or release of your literary work. The more you consider and connect, the better your chances of scoring in the top bands. Now, next up is focus and organization, criterion C. This is the sneakiest of all 4 criteria. Let's look at why. Generally, we discuss or we structure our essays with an introduction, 3 main body paragraphs, and a conclusion. Does this give us a 5 at IBDP? No. Unfortunately, it doesn't. I've circled 2 words. The first, focus. Focus on the question. Focus on the text and evidence. How tight is your essay? Are you going on tangents? Are you able to apply the significance of this work's release date to our present day? Are you able to focus on 3 lines of analysis without overlapping? Now, 1 word has all of this influence. I wouldn't blame you if just reading through this rubric, you didn't even acknowledge the word focus or pay any mind. However, this is exactly what it's referring to. Where am I getting this information? Examiners. Following this, balance. Balance of what? It doesn't just refer to a balanced argument or your refusal as a young academic to achieve an answer, instead present a ponderance as a student of language and literature. Your job isn't to find the answer, it's to present an argument. So does that give us a 5? No, unfortunately it doesn't. Balance in terms of what we are looking for otherwise would refer to airtime. Now, have you given each work the appropriate amount of consideration? How about the amount of time spent unpacking one piece of evidence? How many sentences did you dedicate to examining the implications? Anything they can mark you down on, they will. However, that is why over the next 2 years, if you're joining the DP, I'll be helping you overcome this, not just to help you provide the IB with what they want to help you score, but to develop a higher order of thought that inclines you to subconsciously align with their expectations. Success isn't necessarily reflected in the score you get. Of course, that's what universities are looking for. But do you exit the diploma program smarter and more critical in thought when you observe the world around you than when you entered? If the answer is yes, you have succeeded. Criterion D, I'm not even going to start with this one. If your spelling is out of control, if your sentence structure is similarly chaotic, this is what you need to work on. Experimenting with dependent clauses, and your complex compound sentences. If you have them under control, then it's nothing for you to worry about. If you're writing this piece as if it were a tweet or a Facebook post, then you're going to score very low. But if you are aware of your audience, an IB examiner, then you will be fine. It's more to do with formality and the choice of sentences and vocabulary for a comparative essay. So, your essential components. Global issues, as previously mentioned, they are essential. The IB wants to see them in your IO, it wants to see them in paper 1, and it wants to see them in paper 2 if they fit. So, don't try, as previously mentioned, to fit the question to your text. And if global issues are not appropriate, then don't shoehorn them in. What's more important is your clear and comparative thesis. You can practice this outside of school. You can write this at home and have AI review and mark your work so that you get the tone and balance right. Ask it how well you're aligning with the rubric. Textual evidence, literary features, not just a comparison of plots. Is it focused and comparative throughout? Discussion of authorial purpose and regular reference to the implications and global issues. Let's look at now the mechanics. The introduction you'll be familiar with. We'll come back to this. The introduction, you'll be aware of this already. An opening remark showing you understand the task in hand, reference to the guiding question, and the two texts you intend to compare and contrast, both of the authors and the works, state your thesis, the order, just like paper one, and your IO is essential, and just map out what you're going to do. Tell the reader what to expect. There's no specific structure similar to paper one, but as long as you're ticking all of these boxes and practice, prepare it. It's the easiest one for you to review. However, the main body is where all of your marks generally are found. A comparative topic sentence. Do not start your main body paragraphs referencing one of the texts only. It's a comparative essay, and if you want to achieve high in, this would be criterion A and C, you need focus on both texts. You need knowledge and understanding of both texts. Present this in a comparative topic sentence, followed by reference to text one. Evidence and analyze it. Is it going to be an insightful analysis along with the implications? Don't move on. If you do one paragraph per book, that's not a comparative essay. Or maybe you can justify it in such a way, but you're not showing higher order thinking with almost a seesawing motion from one side to the other, exploring it thematically. You're looking at it as a very basic approach, this one being more text focused rather than thematic. And then once you've presented your second text, the comparative commentary, this is the natural place where you should be connecting the two examples back to the bigger conversation or wider significance. The bigger conversation, global issues, the world beyond the text. So now we are going to examine, just before we finish, the standard level and high level texts, how you are likely to start applying your works that you have reviewed and revise for paper two. So I've coloured in red Caroline Duffy poetry for both standard level and higher level. Standard level is on the left, 4 texts. Higher level is on the right, 6 texts. Now, regardless, you all need to complete an individual oral, 15 minutes. More on that in another episode. That comes out of one of your 4 texts. So now you're down to 3. So for standard levels, going into paper 2, you have short stories by Guy de Maupassant, The Visit, and A Doll's House, the play. Those 2 plays. For high level, however, you have the high level essay. In this instance, let's say Guy de Maupassant, his short stories were selected for the high level essay. You now have 4 texts available: The Visit, A Doll's House, short stories or poetry by Edgar Allan Poe, and Pygmalion, the play. So you have 4 left over. If you are going to select, for standard level, short stories, as advised to me by examiners, the most successful approach you can take is 1 short story per paragraph. So preparing 3 short stories at a minimum for text 1 and comparing it to your second literary work. Don't choose 1 10-page short story for this entire literary work comparison. If 1 10-page short story is going to be compared to Jane Eyre, how on earth are you going to make that work? I would advise you choose multiple. Finally, you're advised to compare and contrast 2 literary works that they, the students, you have studied, not that have been submitted in your course outline. So while you have these 6 or 4 texts submitted to the IB as part of your school, potentially, this doesn't mean you can only use these 4 or 6. However, I would not advise you to choose a random text that appeals to you or stands out, because what we can guarantee, or what your teachers can guarantee you in the text that they deliver, is a certain level of expertise and knowledge as to how we can elevate you to the top bands in paper 2. If you're selecting a text that we have not written a unit for or prepared for, of course, it's something that we can work with. However, it's not going to be as seamless, and the comparisons may not be as obvious as the text that we've prepared. The reason we chose these 4 or 6 texts is because of the way that they tap into each of the expectations from the IB with paper 2. It wasn't an accident, and it was subject to much discussion and revision before we came to this resolution and this result. So, what is paper 2? 4 questions, 1 choice, 1 hour and 45 minutes, regardless of whether you are standard level or higher level. You need to compare techniques, not just ideas, right? With balance, focus, and clarity. Remember who the audience is. What's the implication for them? Never forget what the purpose was. Why is this text on the prescribed reading list? Why have you chosen it? Why is your teacher giving it to you for reading? It wasn't because they were bored. It was because there was thematic density or certain characterization that can help us apply the message from this 20th, 19th, 18th century text into the 21st century. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Be more than happy to read and respond to them. Hope this helped. All the best.